If you work with hospitals, you know they will have some kind of patient database, and they will have all the information about the patients there with demographics, contact information, identifier information, national identifier, local identifiers, etc. And that database will have, for sure, duplicates. You can have the same patient 3-4 times there. The problem is that almost all the patients there will have a linked electronic health record somewhere else, maybe on another database. So that creates a fragmentation of the clinical records. So if you fix the issue about the duplicates in the demographic database, you might be confident that each patient will have just one EHR and the EHR will be complete. The problem is there will always be duplicates in the demographic patient database. It's something that is needed. We sometimes have some processes that need actually a duplicate there, because that's a temporary solution for a real problem. Sometimes in urgent care, in emergency care, you need to create the record for that patient because you need to add clinical documents to it. But sometimes you don't have the full identification of the patient. The patient is unconscious. You don't have any ID on the patient. You don't know who he is or who her is. And sometimes you already have the patient in a different record. So you need a process of reconciliation after creating the demographic record and also the clinical documents on a different EHR that might be also temporal. The problem is sometimes other processes create EHRs or new demographic data and EHRs associated with that demographic data that are not part of any emergency care process. That's a problem, but is difficult to catch. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you will have duplicates in your demographic data, and you need to fix that. Yeah. Most of the hospitals have some solution that is called the Master Patient Index. The Master Patient Index has several functionalities. One is storing data about your patients. So it has records of identities of patients. The second thing is it compares those identities to find potential duplicates. Yeah, so that is kind of a process that is running continuously. And the result is a report. The report says, okay, I found, 10 records that might be similar to other 10 records that we already have. And then a person actually checks that report and marks, okay, this is a real duplicate, this is not a real duplicate. Sometimes the process of verifying the duplicates is more complex than saying yes, no. Maybe sometimes you need to verify the information. Sometimes the information is incomplete, is incorrect. You might need to call the patient on the phone, and there's no way around that. But that fixes a real problem, because if those patient records have EHRs associated with them, clinical records for patients, and you have duplicates, as I said, you will have fragmentation in the clinical record. Why is that a problem? It's a problem because when a doctor accesses one patient and the EHR of that patient, if you have a duplicate record, then you have a piece of the EHR of that patient that is in another place, and the doctor can't access that. The doctor can access one EHR at a time. And that's a problem, because if you want to check, immunizations, if you want to check chronic diseases, if you want to check the last laboratory results, etc., for that patient, the doctor might not find the information, all the information that the doctor needs to make a decision. And that generates a clinical problem. Yeah. So something that might seem administrative is really a clinical problem and might be harmful for the patient. So we need to focus on that problem first. So If the records can be kind of reconciliated or merged together or linked together in some way, the demographic records, you can also link together or merge the EHRs associated with those demographic records for the patients. And that will kind of solve the problem. But you need to be smart in terms of comparing the right records, generating the right reports, and then processing the EHR merging when you confirm that two records for a patient are really the same, for the same patient. And there are many solutions for this. Some commercials, there are some open source. I didn't find a solution that is actually compliant with openEHR. And since I personally work with openEHR, I've been working with openEHR for a while. And we also have a solution that is Atomik, that is a clinical and demographic data repository that complies with openEHR. We thought that, okay, we are already storing information about patients because we have the demographic storage there and demographic data management there. And actually a client asked us, hey, can we do something like a master patient index in Atomik? So after going to the design board to check what pieces we already have of that puzzle, we created something that might be of help. It's not a full master patient index, but gives you the possibility of creating one. So we created the building blocks for constructing and configuring and customizing your own master patient index. As everything in openEHR is very generic. You can do a lot of things with openEHR, and you can adapt the record, the clinical record and the demographic record to your specific needs. So everything in openEHR is mainly dynamic. So it's not a fixed schema, it's not a fixed patient identity, it's not a fixed clinical document. Everything is defined by kind of metadata. So in Atomik, what we build is the building blocks that allows you to via configuration, so you don't need to change the code. You can create your own MPI, master patient index. So what I want to show you is what we build. Here we have Atomik. This is an empty server. It's a new server. We called each Atomik server running server instance an atom. So this is one atom, new atom with an empty database. So just for showing you, so it doesn't distract you on the data that we already have. So if we go down here, we can define what for us is a patient identity. So the patient identity is basically all the data points that will be part of an identity, and that those data points come from an openEHR model. In openEHR, everything is modeled by archetypes and templates. Think of that as a schema, but it's a dynamic schema. So you can have different patients complying with different templates. That means that each patient can have a different data schema, so the data structure for the record. Yeah. So the way to specify that in openEHR is via a template. Yeah. So we can define an identity, and to define an identity, we will choose a template first. Yeah. There are some parameters here, and I will show you what those parameters mean. So first, we give a name to the identity. I will call this simple identity 1. Yeah. You can define many identities because your system might have different definitions of what a patient is. Also, this is something we need to consider. Different parts of the world, different countries, different regions, different cultures have a different concept of what a person identity is. Yeah. So sometimes use, for instance, in the US, you use first name, last name, and sometimes middle name. In South America, we don't use middle name. We have first name, we have a second name, we have a last name, and we have a second last name. Yeah, so just to give you an example of the differences that we could have. But you can use the same, Atomik server to serve and adapt to both realities and to more realities if you work with other regions that the identity of a person is slightly different. Yeah. So what we have here is some parameters. The first parameter allows to group records together. Why is grouping needed? As said before, you have a database with a lot of patients. Let's say you have 1 million patients, and you want to check if one patient that you have is similar to some other patient that you already have. So you need to compare that single patient with all the rest of the patients that you have in the database. But also you need to check the second patient against all the rest and the third patient against all the rest. If you have 1 million patients, I just noted here, this is the number of comparison. I can't even pronounce this, so just read it. This is the number of comparisons that you need to make to actually check each patient against all other patients that you have in your database. So if you have 1 million records, that is not a crazy amount of patients. This amount of comparisons is huge, and it will take maybe days to run. Yeah, you can have distributed systems, you can have systems with a lot of cores, memory, but this is huge, so it will take some time. So what we do, instead of comparing each patient record against all of the patients, what we do is beforehand, before doing the comparison one by one, we assign a vector to a patient. A vector is based on the identity, and what it basically is a set of numbers that represent kind of the internal semantics of the identity of the patient. Long story short, set of numbers, and the set of numbers that are close together are similar patients with similar data, and the ones that are far away are very different. And those that are very similar and grouped together, we call that a cluster, are the ones that will be compared. So when you pick one patient from one of the clusters, instead of comparing with everything in your database, it will be compared with everything inside that cluster, and the cluster will be much smaller. Yeah, and this number here is the percentage of similarity of two vectors that should have. So you compare two vectors, and the vectors will be similar in some percentage. If it's 80% or more, those vectors should be considered belonging to the same cluster. It's just that. Yeah. The duplicate threshold is a percentage also, but is what is considered if you have two records of patients and you do the comparison field by field of the identity. More than that will be considered as a potential duplicate. Yeah, so we can say here 85%. Yeah, and we also have a limit of the comparisons you can do inside a cluster, because the clusters can be big if the patients are very similar. So more than 1,000, for instance, we stop comparing. Yeah, then we need to select the model that we will actually use for the definition of the identity. So I have this prepared. It's just one of many. You can have 10 different, patient definitions in the same Atomik instance. This is the root level archetype defining that specific person that is a patient. And here we have all the data points. Yeah, this is the internal structure of the archetype. As I said, an archetype, a template in openEHR is basically the definition of the structure. In this case, this is in Spanish, I will translate. This is like identity document, this is nationality, country of origin, etc. So a person record, yeah. So I will look for, here's in Spanish. So this is first name, yeah. And this is, I will move this from here. Okay, I will add first name to the identity, then I will choose this one. This is last name. Then I will choose date of birth, this one. And I will add also sex. So this is my minimal, that is a coded text. This is my initial identity. So I will use this to compare two records. So what this will do is this will define which data points should be compared. Yeah, so I have two patients. I need to compare these data points to say, okay, if those are 85 or more percent similar, that might be a possible duplicate. If not, I will kind of discard the result of the comparison. So first, you define the identity. Yeah. Second, you define the algorithm that will use that identity to compare and how the result should be interpreted. Let me show you an example. So I will choose which identity. So you can define many ways of comparing for different identities. So you have identity 1, you will have an algorithm to compare identity 1, identity 2, the same. So here I will choose my identity, and this shows me first name, last name, date of birth, sex. This shows me which operation will be used to compare that specific data point. So if I have two patients, I will get the first name of the first patient, the first name of the second patient, and I will do, for instance, in this case, a comparison by Levenshtein similarity. Levenshtein is just a way of comparing strings that gives you a percentage of similarity of two strings. So I will do the same for first name and last name. Yeah. For the date of birth, I will use date difference, and for the sex, since that's a code, I will do exact matching. So exact will give you 1 or 0, true or false. Yeah. Levenshtein will give you a percentage. If the two first names are exactly the same, it will give you 100% similarity. And the second thing that you need to define here is the weight, because maybe the first name in the identity weights more than the sex, because the sex you have just 2 values, or you can have more values, but let's keep it simple. You have 2 values for binary coding, so that might be less significant in the identity of the patient. So I will put this in 10%. And I will give the name and the last name more percentage. And those should be, for instance, let's do this. Yeah, those should sum 100%. Yeah, the weights. So it will the algorithm to compare two records will be first name. There is a similarity percentage, and that in the total weight of comparing all the values in the identity will be 32%. The last name, the same. Levenshtein will give you an index between 0% and 100% similarity, and that will weight 33%, etc., etc. Yeah. Now we have the identity and we have the comparison. I will just create a sample record to warm this up. This will create a person. Yeah, I need to warm this up. And now what I will do is I will create one patient. These patients will comply with the template that I selected for the identity. Yeah, so these patients have the same structure defined in that template that I showed you before. And you can see here this openEHR data, and is just canonical data. This data structure has, for instance, the address of the patient, the name of the patient, the date of birth, the phone for calling the patient, etc. And here, I want to just to pay attention here. I have the first name is Pablo, it's me, and last name is Paso. So this is correct, yeah? So I will send this patient, it will be created in Atomik, and I will send a second patient, and this second patient has a slight difference. So instead of Pablo with a B, it says Paulo with a U. And Paulo is also a valid name, yeah? But in this case, it might be a mistype because someone heard my name and typed Paulo with a U instead of Pablo with a B. Yeah, but the last name is the same and the rest of the data is the same. So I will create this. And also for testing purposes, I will create an EHR for the first person, and I will create an EHR for the second person. Yeah, so we have two people that are almost the same, just one slight difference. Those will be patients, and those will have EHRs in Atomik. Yeah, so we have a link between the EHR and the record, the demographic record for the patient. Yeah, we can see the records here. So we have two EHRs here. We can go check the EHRs. We see the ID of the EHR. We see the ID of the subject. This is actually the ID of the person that is a patient associated with this EHR. Yeah, and we also see the timeline for that EHR. We see the initial commit that is just creating that EHR. So I will show you this later because I will do a merge of the records for the patients, and that will trigger the merge of the EHRs for those patients. Yeah, so I have that. Then in this area, what we have is the result of the algorithm that does the comparison between two patients. Yeah. So right now here, I need to wait a little bit because this is a background job that runs every 5 minutes. It didn't run or compared the two patients that I created. It actually compared the first one that I created to just warm up the server and the first patient that I created from the batch that I wanted to show you. So in the middle, it ran the comparison. So it compared both, and you see here that those are pretty different. Yeah. And it marked, okay, this is not a duplicate. It still compared them, but it's not a duplicate. I can show you how that looks while we wait for the records that I want to show you how they compare to run. Yeah. So here you can see that we have which identity was used for this comparison, the total similarity, and the result of the comparison. We can see the IDs of both patients here. And we can see here that the first patient and the second patient have these values, yeah, for the identity that I defined. So this is the fields in the identity: first name, last name, date of birth, sex. Those two patients have this first name, this last name, this date of birth, and this sex. So they matched 100% in date of birth and sex, because sex is a code, so it matched. Date of birth, it matched year, month, and day, so everything is the same. Here we have Fonseca and Pasos, those are no matches. And here we have Pelacio and Pablo. There is some similarity. So for instance, the initial P is actually something, yeah, and there is a O here and an L too and an A there. So there is some similarity, but you can see that the similarity is very low. So considering this, the total similarity is here, yeah, because this is the weighted similarity. Even this is 100% similarity, exact match, and this is 100%. This 100% only weight, 25% and 10%. So this is actually 30% of the whole identity. And since the name and last name have lower similarity, there is no weight here. So this is a low overall result. Yeah. So here we can actually confirm, okay, these are no duplicates. So I can say just confirm, and this is my result. So this is me as an administrator marking this potential duplicate that is not a potential duplicate, yeah, but I confirm this is not a potential duplicate. We can also automate this. If the similarity is less than certain threshold, just automatically mark that as not duplicate, so you don't need a human to come in and say this is not a duplicate. Yeah. If we reload this, now we see the comparisons between the two people that I just created. If we check the IDs, this is actually the comparison, because this is the IDs, if you see, of the people that I created, the patients that I created. So this is E53, and these are the IDs, B78. E53 and B78, and you can see this is a potential duplicate, and it has a status, the result is potential duplicate, because this percentage is higher than the 85 we configured, yeah, on the identity compare algorithm. So we can come here, we can check, yeah, okay, I have Pablo here and I have Paulo here, and this is actually an 80% similarity because of that difference in one character. The rest is the same, exactly the same, so the total weighted similarity is almost 94%. So this is actually a record that I want to merge. So I want to merge both patients together. So I need to choose which one will be the active patient and which one will be the inactive patient. So I know for a fact that Pablo is the good one. So I know that actor 1 should be the primary. Yeah. So I select here, the primary should be actor 1. And here we can see that both actors, actor in openEHR is kind of a person, a patient, etc. In this case, just read person. Both patients, people, have an EHR. So if I choose that the first patient, that is Pablo, is the correct patient that I want to keep active after the merge, also the EHR associated with that patient will be the one that will leave after the merge. So I will pick this one as a primary, yeah, just to confirm, actor 1, Pablo, okay, actor 1, this is the one, and we confirm this is a duplicate. Yeah, so it confirmed this is a duplicate. I can go again inside here and I can check. Okay, now it says the primary person, the patient, is this one, and the other one is locked. This means if you want to update the record for the secondary in this merge, that is the inactive one, and you want to update or delete that record, it will fail. It will give you an error because that record is still in the database, because we link both records together, but that link is a soft link, is a reference. Yeah, but the semantics is you link this together and you said this record is inactive, so if you try to update that or delete that, it will give you an error. You can't update something that is not active anymore. Yeah. But when you look for a patient, you execute a query, you will get the query result just to include the primary. It won't include the secondary, the one that is locked. Yeah, it will work against the one that is active. Yeah, so you can see that here, and you can see that the associated EHRs are there, but also you can see this box. This is a new box. Since you merge these two patients and both patients have EHRs, then Atomik automatically created a EHR merge request to merge the EHRs together also for these people that were merged together. Yeah, so it will give you some information about the EHRs, it will give you a reason, and this is an automated reason because it's just that. Okay, these EHRs belong to two patients that were merged together. Basically, it says that. And you can check the EHR merge request. This is the reason. You can see some basic information about the primary and the secondary EHR. The primary is the EHR that belongs to the primary patient also, and the secondary is the one that should be active, inactive, and the active one will be the primary. Here you can also, just to be sure, why are you are actually merging these two EHRs together, you can check the patient information. Yeah, so you can check that the primary is Pablo Pasos, blah blah blah, and the similarity is 94% rounded. Yeah, so it is telling you, okay, I am reviewing this request, and this was because these two patients were merged together, and the patients really look like, those are the same patient. But here I can do something like calling the patient, calling the primary, and saying, hey, I have two records of you here. One says Pablo, another says Paulo. What's your name? And they can confirm, okay, this is my information, blah 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 blah. And they can say, okay, yes. So here you can say, okay, I called the patient. So here you can write whatever reason, and you can say, okay, authorize this EHR merge. You can also review the records of the patients, the full record. Yeah, so you can do something like this. You can, it is here, it loads, let's check. The primary is E53. So E53, this is the primary. So it will show you the differences between the primary patient and the secondary patient. And this is actually the data that was sent to Atomik when the patients were created. Yeah. So there are some differences, but the differences here are in some IDs, some dates. So that is normal. It's not a difference in the data itself. So if I scroll down, everything looks the same. Everything looks the same, but there's something here that I want to show you, but this line. So two records, there is one difference in the data that is not just a lock date or an ID, is the data. So we see that the primary has Pablo and the secondary has Paulo. Yeah. So here you can see, okay, this is the only difference, because here you will see more differences than the ones here in the identity comparison, because the identity is really a subset of the data that you have for the patient. The patient will have more data points. Yeah. For instance, what I said today, you have a second name, yeah, or a middle name. Maybe that is not part of the identity that was compared, but here you can see, search for that node, and if there is a difference, you can say, okay, maybe these two people are not really the same. So I might not need, or I might deny, reject this EHR merge request. And maybe I need to go back and undo the patient merge, because you can undo the patient merge. Yeah. In this case, those are the same. I can confirm those are the same. So I say, okay, confirm. I can hide this and I can authorize. And this will create a merge between the EHRs. Yeah. So if you go to the records, you will see this takes also a little bit. I can show you, for instance, here that here it says that the EHRs were merged. I can check status here of the EHRs. So this will give me some. This is just a log of the information about the merges that were requested and executed. Yeah. And if I go back here, okay, there is a job also running that does the merge after the merge is approved. Yeah. So it did the merge of those two EHRs, and it's saying this is the primary and this is the secondary. This was merged into another EHR. Yeah. So this says this was merged into EHR 9A9, and 9A9 is the other one. Yeah. So if we check this EHR, yeah, we can also unmerge. We have the unmerge functionality, but let's just do the happy path here. Now in the timeline, you can see the merge. You can see the original EHR. You can see the canonical. The original is the EHR that is the secondary, that was merged into the canonical. The canonical means I received the merge of another EHR. The canonical will be the active EHR, and the original will be the inactive, the one that was merged into this one. Yeah. So here we see that EHRB is the original, is this EHR that I'm looking at. So this is EHRB, and EHRA is the canonical one. So this is telling me, okay, EHRA was created here, EHRB was created here, and here I did the merge. Yeah, and the merge, this is saying that this and this is saying the merge was from EHRB into EHRA. So the one that is active is the green one. Yeah. So if I do a merge, when I see one EHR, I really want to see the other EHR that was merged into this one, or if this one was merged into another one, I want to see the other one participating of the merge. And on the right, I have a simple kind of event log for all the EHRs that participated, that are linked together, basically. Yeah. So here we can see that this EHR was created. Here we can see the other one was created, and then we can see there is a merge event. This will get more complex when you have multiple EHRs merged together. Yeah, because you can have duplicates, triplicates, etc. And in time, you might have a lot of merges. So you might have a kind of a network of EHRs that were merged into other EHRs and were related. At the end of the day, what you want to manage and query is really all the documents from all the EHRs that were merged together, and that is kind of one EHR for a single patient. That is, at the end of the day, the goal here. So this view in Atomik actually allows you to see that. You will see if, let's say, there is an EHRC here, and maybe EHRA was merged into EHRC, you will see another line here. You will see also the events here, and you will see on the right all the events from all the EHRs. The events are really, this is where when the EHR was created, This is when a document was added to the EHR. This is when a folder was created in the EHR. This is when a document was updated in the EHR. This is when we did a merge of two EHRs, etc. So we started with, just to recap, we have a database with patients. We know there will be duplicates. We need to first compare the patients to detect duplicates in a smart way. That is two problems we need to solve. First, we need to define how the patients will be compared. Yeah. So that is identity and the comparison algorithm. The second thing is, well, related to that, the reporting. We need to report that. But the other thing is how we can pick the candidates to be compared in a smart way. So we don't compare, against the whole database. That takes a lot of time and effort, resources, etc. And how can we optimize that in a smart way? So we kind of do a grouping before the comparison of identities that we know will be similar. Yeah. And for that, I didn't mention that what I said is we create vectors basically for the identities, and for that we use small language models. Yeah. So instead of large language models, we use small language models that are called sentence transformers. Basically, a sentence transformer, if you give a string, it will give you a vector. And if two strings are semantically similar, not syntactically, but the information contained in those two strings is similar, then it will give you similar vectors. So vectors that are close together. Vectors is basically a point in a space. Yeah. So if you have a two-dimension vector, that will be a point in a plane. Yeah. These vectors that we use have 384 dimensions. So it's kind of a point in a 384 dimensional space. Yeah. And those points, when those points are really close together, it means that's a cluster. And we do the optimization for the comparison just to comparing inside the cluster. Yeah. And everything is done automatically. You don't really need to know about that. As I show you, everything is done in the user interface, just clicking, defining things in forms, and then following normal workflows. So we keep the complexity from you as a user administrator. Yeah. This is an administrator web interface. It's not for end users. This is not for clinicians. Yeah. As everything in Atomik. And this allows you to actually configure your own master patient index. These are the building blocks. So the next step will be, for instance, customizing the reports, yeah, or sending notifications, or customizing when the comparison algorithm runs. Your organization, your hospital might want this to run daily, or run weekly or monthly. Yeah, that can be configured. So with these building blocks, you can actually do whatever you need. And the advantage that you have here is that you also have the clinical records inside the same repository. So when you do a patient merge, you also trigger the EHR merge. And that is very important because it requires a lot of effort to do the EHR merge. And our approach of merging EHRs is really very simple, yeah, but very powerful at the same time. Yeah. And there is a lot of complexity inside that related to querying, because when you query and you have two EHRs that are merged, you need to query the documents that are in both EHRs. And if you have a network of EHRs that are merged together, you need to search through all that network of EHRs. So there is a lot of complexity here, but the user gets the simplicity. And also everything here is available through the REST API. So you can actually, if you see that, the user interface here is not enough for instance, the duplicate detection, you need to adapt this report for something you want to create or you want to show to administrative people in your hospital, and they might not access this. So you can create a different application, very simple application that accesses the REST API, gets this information, adapts the form or the report in different ways, and also provides the actions to mark, okay, this is a duplicate, this is not a duplicate. I want to check the difference between two patient records, etc. I want to call the patient, where is the phone number, etc. We can do that through the REST API. We can provide that extra customization step. And this is what we have right now. We are working on this, actively working on this for a client. But I thought that this might help other people to think about MPI solutions based on openEHR, and also to think about different strategies. There are many strategies to define, for instance, the clusters. We choose to use these small language models, but there are many ways of doing that. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have any suggestions, it will be lovely to hear from you. Thank you. Bye-bye.